What would you do if damning proof of cheating arrived 3 weeks before your wedding but something about it felt wrong? 3 weeks before my wedding, I got a message that nearly destroyed everything I'd built with the man I loved. But here's the thing about being a software engineer who spent years debugging code and spotting inconsistencies: you learn to look closer when something doesn't feel right. I'm Muna Patel, 29 years old, and I work at a tech startup in Seattle where I spend my days hunting down bugs and anomalies in complex systems. That skill, which sometimes drives my friends crazy when I overanalyze restaurant menus or movie plots, ended up saving my entire future. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, back when everything seemed perfect and my biggest worry was whether the florist could get peonies in November. Ezra Morrison and I had been together for 4 years, engaged for 8 months, and we were 3 weeks away from what was supposed to be the happiest day of our lives. We'd met at a mutual friend's birthday party where he'd somehow convinced me to play beer pong despite my protests that I had terrible hand-eye coordination. He was right, I was terrible, but he thought my competitive streak was charming. By the end of the night, we exchanged numbers and he'd promised to teach me his secret technique. For years later, I still couldn't land a ball in a cup, but I could land a husband. Ezra worked as an architect, designing sustainable housing projects, and he had this way of seeing beauty in structures that most people walk past without a second glance. He'd stop on our walks and point out corbels and cornices, getting genuinely excited about load-bearing walls and natural light optimization. I loved that about him, the way he found magic in the mundane. Where I saw ones and zeros, he saw lines and spaces. We balanced each other. Our wedding was set for the 15th of November at a historic mansion in the countryside, exactly the kind of place Ezra would appreciate for its architecture and I would love for its garden. We invited 200 guests, including my parents who were flying in from Mumbai with half of our extended family. My mom had been planning her only daughter's wedding since I was probably 5 years old, and my dad had saved for years to make it perfect. The price tag had climbed to $85,000, which made me nauseous every time I thought about it, but both sets of parents insisted on going all out. Deposits were paid, dresses were altered, and my cousin had already arrived from India 2 weeks early to help with preparations. Everything was perfect. Until it wasn't. It was a Tuesday evening, the 20th of October, and I was working late finishing up a sprint deadline. Ezra had texted earlier saying he'd pick up Thai food on his way home. I was deep in code when my phone buzzed with an Instagram notification. A message request from an account I didn't recognize, just a random string of numbers and letters. I almost ignored it, probably would have if I hadn't been looking for an excuse to step away from my screen. I opened it, and my stomach dropped. The message was simple and devastating. You should know who you're marrying. He's been cheating on you. Below it were 6 screenshots, each one more damning than the last. The screenshots showed text conversations between Ezra's number, I recognized it immediately, and someone named Vanessa. The messages were explicit, sexual, discussing meetups at hotels. His profile picture was the same one he used on his actual phone, a photo I'd taken of him at the beach last summer. The messages were dated over the past 3 months, with the most recent being from 2 days ago. My hand started shaking. This couldn't be real. Ezra wasn't a cheater. He was the man who called his mom every Sunday, who cried during emotional movie scenes, who spent his Saturday mornings volunteering at Habitat for Humanity. He was kind and honest, and he looked at me like I hung the moon. This had to be some kind of mistake. But the evidence looked real. The screenshots showed his phone number clearly at the top. The messages included details that seemed too specific to be fabricated, references to places in Seattle, inside jokes that could have been real. My rational brain was screaming that something was off, but my emotional brain was spiraling into panic. I sat there for 20 minutes, just staring at my phone, reading and rereading the messages. Vanessa, whoever she was, seemed completely comfortable with the situation. The messages showed her sending photos, him responding enthusiastically, making plans to meet up. One message from just a week ago said, "Can't wait to see you Saturday, same hotel." Saturday. That was the day Ezra said he was helping his dad with some renovation project. My mind raced through possibilities. Should I confront him immediately? Should I hire a private investigator? Should I call off the wedding? What would I tell my parents, who had 50 relatives arriving in 2 weeks? What about the deposits, the venue, the photographer, the caterer? We'd lose $35,000 if we canceled now. But more than the money, more than the embarrassment, I felt this crushing weight in my chest thinking about losing Ezra. I loved him. I trusted him. Or at least, I thought I did. Then my rational brain kicked in. This is where being a software engineer probably saved my relationship. I zoomed in on the first screenshot and studied it like I would study a bug report. Something felt off. The font. The rendering was slightly different from what iOS messages actually looked like. I'd spent enough time developing mobile apps to know what native iOS elements look like, and this was close, but not quite right. The letter spacing was maybe 1 pixel too wide. The bubble corners were slightly more rounded than they should be. I opened the next screenshot. The timestamp showed 12:05 p.m. Ezra's phone used 24-hour military time. He'd said it that way years ago because he said it helped him avoid missing afternoon meetings. I teased him about it constantly, calling him unnecessarily technical. But these screenshots all showed 12-hour time format with AM and PM markers. I felt a small flicker of hope. I zoomed in further on the third screenshot, examining every pixel. And that's when I saw it. In the black area at the top of the screen, where the status bar should have been completely black, there was a faint reflection. It was barely visible, but when I adjusted the brightness on my phone and tilted it at an angle, I could make it out. A reflection of a computer screen. And on that screen, partially visible in the reflection, was what looked like an email inbox. I could just barely make out part of an email address. It ended in Hayes. Hayes. Scarlett Hayes. Ezra's ex-girlfriend. My brain started racing in a completely different direction now. Ezra had dated Scarlett for 6 years before they broke up 5 years ago. He told me early in our relationship that she'd cheated on him, that the breakup had been brutal, that she'd tried to get back together multiple times before finally accepting it was over. He'd mentioned once, casually, that she still watched his Instagram stories, but that he barely thought about her anymore. I'd never worried about Scarlett. Why would I? They'd been broken up for years, and from what Ezra said, their relationship had been toxic toward the end. But now I was thinking about all the wedding content I'd been posting. Photos of my ring, our engagement shoot, countdowns to the wedding, dress shopping with my bridesmaids. All public, all visible to anyone who followed me, including anyone who might be obsessively checking my profile. I screenshot the screenshots, a meta move that felt weirdly appropriate, and opened them in my photo editing software on my laptop. I examined the metadata. The photos had been created on an iPhone, but not taken as screenshots. They'd been created by an app. I searched the app signature in the metadata and found it. Text Fake App, a service that lets you create fake text message conversations that look completely real. My heart rate started to slow. This wasn't evidence of Ezra cheating. This was evidence of someone trying to destroy my relationship. I heard Ezra's key in the door and quickly closed my laptop. He walked in carrying bags of Thai food, smiling. "Hey babe, I got your pad see ew with extra vegetables, and I grabbed some mango sticky rice because I know you've been stressed about work." I looked at him, really looked at him. His face was open, happy, completely guileless. This was not the face of a man who'd been sexting someone named Vanessa for 3 months. "Ezra," I said slowly. "When was the last time you heard from Scarlett?" His expression shifted to confusion. "Scarlett? I don't know, years probably." "Why? Does she still follow you on Instagram?" "I think so, but I never check." "Luna, what's going on? You're scaring me." I pulled up the anonymous message on my phone and handed it to him. I watched his face as he read through the screenshots. He went pale, then red, then pale again. "Luna, I swear to God, I didn't, this isn't real." "I know," I said. He blinked. "You know. It's fake. Badly faked, actually. Look at the font rendering, the timestamp format, the metadata signature." I pulled up the screenshots on my laptop and walked him through everything I'd found. With each piece of evidence, I watched the panic drain from his face, replaced by anger. "Scarlett," he said. It wasn't a question. She's the only person who would do something like this. That's what I'm thinking. I can see a reflection in this screenshot that shows an email address ending in Hayes. Plus the timing makes sense. She's been watching our wedding planning content. Ezra sat down heavily on the couch. I can't believe she would go this far. I mean, I knew she had trouble moving on, but this is psychotic. We need to figure out how to handle this, I said. Because if she sent these to me, who else might she send them to? Your parents. My parents. Our wedding guests. Ezra's eyes widened. Your parents. Luna, if your dad saw these. I didn't need him to finish. My parents were conservative, traditional. A cheating scandal, even a fake one, would be devastating. My mom had already expressed concern about me marrying someone who wasn't Indian. My dad had come around, but barely. This would give them ammunition to demand I call off the wedding, and if I refused after a public scandal, they'd made it clear they'd cut ties with me. We need proof, I said. Real proof that it's her, and proof of how she did it. Over the next 3 days, I became a digital detective. I started by searching for text spoofing services and fake message generators. There were dozens of them, some free, some paid. The paid ones were more sophisticated, offering better graphics and more customization. I made a list of the top 10 services and started investigating. Most services required an account or at least a payment method. If I could find evidence that Scarlett had used one of these services, we have our proof. But I needed to be smart about this. I couldn't just hack into her accounts, that would be illegal. I needed to find a legitimate trail. I started with LinkedIn. I know, weird choice, but people put work email addresses on LinkedIn all the time. I found Scarlett's profile. She worked in human resources at a mid-sized tech company, which was ironic considering what she was doing. Her profile listed her work email in the contact information section. Then I got creative. I used a service that checks if an email address has been used to register accounts on various platforms. It's a legitimate tool, often used for security audits. I entered Scarlett's work email and waited. The results came back with a list of platforms where that email had been used. Most were normal: LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook. But one caught my eye. Text Creator Pro, one of the paid fake message services on my list. My hands were shaking with adrenaline. I had proof she'd used a fake message service. But I needed more. I needed to connect the dots definitively. I checked Scarlett's Instagram next. Her profile was public, and I scrolled through months of posts. There were photos of her with a guy, tagged as Wyatt Chen. According to his profile, which was also public, they'd been dating for about a year and gotten engaged 3 months ago. 3 months! Right around when the fake messages supposedly started. I dug deeper into Wyatt's profile. His family name sounded familiar, and a quick Google search told me why. The Chen family owned several successful restaurant chains in the Pacific Northwest. They were wealthy, prominent in the local business community, and based on the photos from various charity events, well-connected socially. Scarlett had landed herself a catch. So why was she sabotaging my relationship with Ezra? The psychology wasn't hard to figure out. She was engaged, possibly about to have the perfect wedding she'd always imagined having with Ezra, but she couldn't stand the thought of Ezra being happy with someone else. Maybe she convinced herself that if she destroyed our relationship, Ezra would realize he'd made a mistake leaving her. Or maybe she was just cruel and vindictive. Either way, she'd gone to elaborate lengths to try to break us up. I took screenshots of everything. Her LinkedIn profile showing her work email. The results showing that email had been used to register for Text Creator Pro. Her Instagram posts showing her engagement to Wyatt. All of it carefully documented and timestamped. Then I drafted a response to the anonymous Instagram account. I need to meet with you in person. I want to hear your side of this before I confront him. Can we meet somewhere public? The response came within an hour. Green Lake Park, tomorrow at 2 p.m. I'll be on the north bench by the playground. I have more evidence to show you. Perfect. She'd taken the bait. That night, Ezra and I made a plan. We'd need witnesses, documentation, and legal backing. Ezra called his friend Marcus Harrison, who was a lawyer specializing in harassment and defamation cases. I called my friend Ivy Cooper, who happened to be a police officer. Not that we planned to have Scarlett arrested necessarily, but having law enforcement present would make it clear we were serious. Marcus drafted a cease and desist letter outlining the evidence we had and demanding Scarlett stop all contact and attempts to interfere in our relationship. He also prepared paperwork for a restraining order if necessary. Ivy agreed to come in her official capacity, making it clear that what Scarlett had done could constitute harassment, identity fraud, and defamation. The next day, I arrived at Green Lake Park at 1:45 p.m. Ezra, Marcus, and Ivy were already there, positioned at a distance but within view. I sat on the north bench and waited. Scarlett arrived exactly at 2 p.m. I recognized her from her Instagram photos, tall, blonde, with the kind of polished look that screamed expensive skincare routine and regular salon visits. She sat down next to me, not recognizing me at first. "Vanessa?" she asked. "No," I said calmly. "I'm Luna, Ezra's fiancée." Her face went white, then red. She started to stand up, but I held up my phone. "You might want to stay and hear what I have to say, Scarlett." She froze. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Really?" "Because I have some interesting information. Like the fact that your work email is registered to Text Creator Pro, a service that creates fake text message screenshots. Or the fact that when I examined the screenshots you sent me, I could see the reflection of your computer screen in the black areas, showing your email inbox. Or the fact that the image metadata shows these were created by a text generator app, not actual screenshots from a real conversation. Scarlett's face had gone from red to ashen. "You can't prove anything." "Actually, I can. But here's what's really interesting. I've documented all of this, and I've brought some people who are very interested in discussing it with you." I gestured, and Ezra, Marcus, and Ivy walked over. Scarlett looked like she might throw up. Ezra stood in front of her, his face hard. "Scarlett, what the hell is wrong with you?" "Ezra, I was just trying to protect you." "She's not right for you." "Protect me. You tried to destroy my relationship with fake evidence. You committed fraud. You tried to humiliate Luna and ruin our wedding." Marcus stepped forward and handed Scarlett a formal-looking envelope. "Miss Hayes, this is a cease and desist order. You are to have no contact with Mr. Morrison or Ms. Patel. You are not to create, distribute, or possess any false evidence regarding either of them. You are not to contact any of their family members, friends, or wedding guests. If you violate any of these terms, we will pursue legal action including but not limited to a restraining order, defamation lawsuit, and criminal charges for harassment and fraud." Ivy pulled out her badge. "Miss Hayes, I'm Officer Cooper. What you've done constitutes several crimes, including identity fraud and harassment. Mr. Morrison and Ms. Patel have chosen not to press charges at this time, but that decision can change. I strongly suggest you comply with the terms of that cease and desist letter." Scarlett was shaking now. "You can't, my job, my fiancé." "About that," I said. "We need to discuss Wyatt." Her eyes went wide. "No, you can't tell Wyatt. Please. Why would we keep this from him? He deserves to know that his fiancée has been obsessively stalking her ex-boyfriend and trying to destroy his relationship. Don't you think that's information he should have before he marries you?" "Please," Scarlett whispered. "His family, they're very prominent. If they find out about this, they'll make him break up with me." "That sounds like a consequence of your actions," Ezra said coldly. Marcus interjected, "Miss Hayes, here's what's going to happen. You're going to sign this cease and desist agreement right now. You're going to delete all fake screenshots and any evidence you created. You're going to provide written confirmation that you fabricated everything. And we will be contacting Mr. Chen with all of our evidence and documentation. What he chooses to do with that information is up to him, but he has a right to know." "You're going to ruin my life," Scarlett said, tears streaming down her face. "No," I said firmly. "You tried to ruin my life. You tried to destroy my relationship, my wedding, my reputation, and my family relationships. All because you can't handle seeing Ezra happy. You did this to yourself. Scarlett signed the cease and desist with shaking hands. Marcus took photos of her signature and the signed document. Then she fled, practically running across the park. We stood there for a moment in silence. Then Ezra pulled me into a hug. I can't believe you figured all of that out. Debug mode activated, I said, trying to lighten the mood even though I was shaking with adrenaline. That evening, we called Wyatt Chen. It wasn't an easy conversation. I felt bad for him in a way, but he deserved to know who he was engaged to. We sent him all the evidence, the screenshots, the metadata analysis, the proof of Scarlett using the fake message service, everything. His response came 2 hours later via email. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I had no knowledge of her actions. Our engagement is terminated effective immediately. My family's attorneys will be in touch regarding the return of the family ring. I appreciate your discretion in this matter. The next day, Scarlett's desperate emails started coming. She was begging us not to share the information with anyone else, saying her life was falling apart, that Wyatt's family was threatening legal action for some valuable family heirloom ring she'd been given, that she might lose her job in HR if her company found out she'd committed fraud. We didn't respond to her emails. We'd said what we needed to say, and we'd set our boundaries. But we also didn't stay silent with our mutual friend group. We were strategic about it. We shared the full story with the handful of people who knew both us and Scarlett, providing screenshots of the fake messages, our evidence of how we discovered the fraud, and what had happened in the confrontation at the park. The response was overwhelming. Multiple people came forward saying Scarlett had asked them questions about our relationship over the past few months, fishing for information or trying to plant seeds of doubt. One person said Scarlett had tried to get them to tell her when our bachelor and bachelorette parties were happening. Another said she'd asked pointed questions about whether Ezra seemed truly happy. It became clear that Scarlett's obsession had been building for a while, probably since we'd gotten engaged. She'd been monitoring our social media, stalking our lives, looking for any opportunity to interfere. The fake screenshots were just a culmination of months of obsessive behavior. Within our friend group, Scarlett was effectively ostracized. People were horrified by what she'd tried to do, especially those who had partners themselves. The idea that someone would fabricate infidelity evidence was so beyond the pale that no one wanted anything to do with her. If she tried this manipulation in the future, no one would believe her. We also sent a formal complaint to Scarlett's employer, including all evidence of her actions. We didn't know if it would result in any consequences for her, but given that she worked in HR, a position requiring ethics and trustworthiness, we felt her company should be aware of her behavior. A week later, Marcus received a call from their legal department confirming that the matter was being handled internally. We didn't push for details, but reading between the lines, it seemed Scarlett's job was in jeopardy. The wedding happened on schedule, all 200 guests, $85,000 budget, and international family members included. My parents never found out about Scarlett's scheme, which was probably for the best. They loved Ezra, enjoyed their moment in the spotlight with the beautiful wedding, and went home to Mumbai with hundreds of photos and stories to share. Standing at the altar with Ezra, exchanging vows we'd written ourselves, I felt overwhelmingly grateful. Not just for the wedding or the marriage, but for my own brain. For years, people had teased me about being too analytical, too detail-oriented, too focused on finding bugs and inconsistencies. But those same traits had saved my relationship. If I'd reacted emotionally, if I'd confronted Ezra in anger without examining the evidence, if I'd let the panic override my rational thinking, Scarlett might have succeeded in destroying what we had. Instead, my instinct to debug the problem, to zoom in and examine every pixel, to check metadata and question inconsistencies, had revealed the truth. In my vows, I included a line that only Ezra understood fully. I promised to always look closer, to examine the evidence, and to trust in what we've built together. He squeezed my hand when I said it, and I saw tears in his eyes. The reception was everything we'd hoped for. The historic mansion glowed with string lights, our friends and family danced and laughed, and the speeches were equal parts heartfelt and hilarious. Ezra's best man made a joke about me being the only person who could debug a relationship crisis, and everyone laughed because by then, a sanitized version of the story had made the rounds. People knew someone had tried to cause trouble, that we handled it, and that it was all resolved. The specifics stayed between us and those who needed to know. We honeymooned in Japan, 2 weeks of exploring Tokyo, Kyoto, and Osaka. Ezra photographed architectural details while I finally relaxed, letting go of months of wedding stress and the trauma of nearly losing everything. We didn't talk about Scarlett at all during those 2 weeks. She'd taken up enough of our mental space. When we returned, we found out through mutual friends that Scarlett had moved to Portland. Whether she left Seattle by choice or was pushed out by the social and professional consequences of her actions, we didn't know and didn't ask. She was gone from our lives, which was exactly what we wanted. The restraining order paperwork stayed filed but unsubmitted. We had it ready if she ever violated the cease and desist, but she never did. Her Instagram went private, she unfollowed both of us, and as far as we could tell, she finally moved on with her life. We hope she got therapy. We hope she learned from this. But mostly, we just hope she stayed away. Now, a year later, I think about that Tuesday evening when my phone buzzed with a message that nearly destroyed everything. I think about how close I came to losing Ezra, not because of anything he did, but because someone else's obsession and vindictiveness had manifested in such a cruel way. The experience taught me several things. First, that technical skills can be applied to life problems in unexpected ways. My ability to analyze code and spot bugs translated directly into spotting the flaws in Scarlett's fabricated evidence. Second, that trust is precious but should be backed by verification, especially when the stakes are high. I trusted Ezra, but I also verified the evidence, and both were important. Third, that taking decisive action is crucial. We didn't just expose Scarlett's scheme, we made sure there were real consequences and that she couldn't hurt us or anyone else in the future. People ask me sometimes if I'm angry at Scarlett, if I hate her for what she tried to do. Honestly, I mostly feel sorry for her. She was so consumed by her inability to let go of the past that she destroyed her own future. She lost a wealthy fiancé, damaged her career, alienated her friends, and had to leave the city to escape the social consequences. All because she couldn't accept that Ezra had moved on. I also think about Wyatt sometimes, wondering how he's doing. He seemed like a decent guy from our brief interaction, and he didn't deserve to be manipulated by someone with such deep-seated issues. I hope he found someone better, someone who was actually ready for a real relationship instead of someone still obsessed with their ex. As for Ezra and me, we're stronger than ever. The experience of nearly losing each other, of fighting together against someone trying to tear us apart, created a bond that's hard to break. We know we can trust each other, even when presented with seemingly damning evidence. We know we have each other's backs. We know we can face challenges together and come out the other side intact. Last month, we bought our first house, a fixer-upper that Ezra is excited to renovate and I'm excited to fill with smart home technology. We've talked about starting a family in a year or two. We've built a life together that's grounded in reality, not fantasy or obsession. Sometimes when I'm debugging code at work, finding the tiny inconsistency that's causing a massive problem, I think about those screenshots and smile. My coworkers probably think I'm weird, smiling at bug reports, but they don't know the story. They don't know that my obsessive attention to detail saved more than just a code base, it saved my entire future. The lesson, if there is one, is this. When someone presents you with evidence that threatens to destroy something you value, look closer. Question everything. Check the metadata. Zoom in on the details. Trust your instincts when something feels off. And if you discover that someone is trying to manipulate you, don't just defend yourself, make sure there are consequences that prevent them from doing it to someone else. Scarlett tried to write our story, creating a false narrative of betrayal and heartbreak. But she forgot that I'm an engineer, and engineers don't just accept the surface-level presentation. We dig deeper, we test the code, we find the bugs. And when we find them, we fix the problem completely. Our wedding photos hang in our living room now, beautiful reminders of the day we committed to spending our lives together. When I look at them, I don't think about Scarlett or her schemes. I think about Ezra's smile when I walk down the aisle, about my dad's speech where he welcomed Ezra to the family, about dancing with my grandmother who'd flown halfway around the world to be there. I think about everything that mattered, everything that was real. The fake screenshots are deleted now, but I kept one copy of all the evidence, properly backed up and secured. Just in case. Because once you've debugged one attack, you prepare for the possibility of another. That's just good engineering practice. But I don't think we'll need it. Scarlett learned her lesson the hard way. She learned that fabricating evidence leaves traces, that obsession has consequences, and that some people are too smart to be fooled by even sophisticated manipulation. She learned that trying to destroy someone else's happiness doesn't bring you happiness, it just brings you destruction. And I learned that the skills I use every day in my career, the attention to detail, the systematic analysis, the refusal to accept things at face value, aren't just useful for writing code. They're essential for protecting what matters most. So here I am, a year later, happily married to the man I love, living in our first house, planning our future together. The woman who tried to destroy all of this is gone, living somewhere else, hopefully working on her own issues. Our mutual friends know what she did and won't fall for similar schemes in the future. And I have an amazing story about how debugging skills saved my wedding. Sometimes life gives you bugs. Sometimes those bugs are malicious, deliberately planted by someone who wants to crash your system. But if you know how to look for them, if you examine the code carefully and trust your ability to spot inconsistencies, you can find them, fix them, and make sure they don't corrupt anything else. That's what I did. I found the bug, traced it to its source, patched the vulnerability, and protected my system. And now Ezra and I are running smoothly, no crashes, no corruption, just a solid, stable build of a life we're creating together. The end of Scarlett's scheme was the beginning of our real life together, a life built on trust, communication, and the knowledge that we can weather any storm as long as we face it together. She tried to write our ending, but she forgot a crucial detail. In our story, we're the ones holding the pen, and we write our own code. And our code, unlike her fake screenshots, is built to last.